What is up, Space Dads? Space Latvian here for the Space Game of the Year. No Man's Sky releasing yet another update for free and bringing in the most people ever. Of course, not counting the launch, which was disastrous, but now coming out with nearly 100 players. Peak on 2 days straight. Well, that's quite an achievement, gotta say. So what did they bring out? Alright, enough copying Actman there. But regardless, it's still interesting to see No Man's Sky going on and releasing something that is not exactly original and yet at the same time beats the source almost entirely. And humiliates quite a lot of its peers in the process of it. And yet, still, everyone is positive about it. So for quite some time, gamers across the board has been joking about No Man's Sky as a game that refuses to take money and yet releases quality update after quality update, bringing in just more positive vibes and gameplay and just content for everyone to enjoy. At the same time, looking at the general gaming communities and especially gaming industry, it's a very big standout and for a good reason, and we need more of it. However, it still continues to baffle everyone, in the financials especially. How can they keep on releasing update after update that's just good? But before we talk about that, let's just get into what even was added. Now we start off with a new ship itself, the Corvette, a new type of class of a ship that you can completely customize, much like Starfield. As a matter of fact, it actually is a very close copy-paste of Starfield. And then again, that's not a bad thing. A good feature is a good feature, as I've said about Star Citizen, LA Dangerous, or No Man's Sky, or X4. A good idea still is a good idea, and copying it shouldn't be frowned upon. With a more free-form camera to build out the ship you want without restrictions and Bethesda weirdness. So on that front, they actually improved Bethesda's attempt at ship building. And why not? Overall, the best part of Starfield was arguably the ship building itself. It really brought out the creativity and interest in the whole ship experience. However, there is one specific difference between Starfield and No Man's Sky. There are no loading screens. Oh god, it's pretty funny looking at Starfield's subreddit, seeing people still say, oh well, hey, only people talking about Starfield's loading screens are the ones that want to dunk on it. Well, no shit. Look how it can be done without stupid Bethesda or Creation Engine nonsense. Wow, much innovations. Such technology. Though there is a difference between Starfield and No Man's Sky ship building, namely in the dimensions you can build in the first place. In No Man's Sky you can build about the same or longer and wider ships overall. However, the main difference is that in No Man's Sky you can't build above 3 layers of hab units. While in Starfield, well, you can go quite a bit higher than that, because you're not restrained by multiple things like landing port or the mail slot, essentially. But even with these limitations, in the first couple of days, No Man's Sky's community has managed to build out some interesting things, even dedicated subreddits for the ship builds themselves. And after that, also the new ship that you've built comes with a few new features, like the autopilot, which, let's do an autopilot, might as well to... Stop it, please! Autopilot, stop! And speaking of rummaging around in the new ship, well, you have the ship interior. It's not just a loading screen straight to the cockpit. LA Dangerous. And that's kind of the beauty of shipbuilding itself. You can create whatever you want as long as you have enough time. However, where No Man's Sky differs from Starfield's attempt is that you can customize the interior a lot more, which was kind of sorely missed from Starfield itself, but there you go. And speaking of walking inside, Hello Games decided, well, what if we did one better? Let you leave the ship entirely. Yes, EVA now is possible in No Man's Sky as well, joining one of the few space sims that actually allow you to do that, or doing a Halo jump. And those who don't know, Halo means high altitude, low opening jump. And that's kind of the thing with the whole update itself, and the last updates before this, and before this, and before this. No Man's Sky just keeps on delivering nice updates, things that improve and add content to the game itself, with the quality of life in tow. Now granted, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, of course. No Man's Sky is still No Man's Sky, it looks like it does. And all of this nice stuff, the easy to access content, just content in general, and the fun gameplay that you can have not only alone but with your friends was, well, quickly reflected in the community itself. In fact, a lot of positivities was spread around and reaching quite a bit of player peak here, near 100,000 players. That is a, well, success, as a matter of fact. It is the highest since Nexus update. But regardless, for a kiddie's first space game, it goes far and beyond mechanics that even more hardcore games tend to have. And that's where we are gonna go next. Take a look at the reaction afterwards. As you quickly glance over the No Man's Sky subreddit, for example, you see a lot of interesting builds. Some fun, some serious, and some just, that. So without a doubt, it's rather interesting to see what community can come up with when they're given the tools of creativity, and not only just in the fun aspect of it. Functionality of these new ships, the corvettes, has become rather interesting tool as well. But what's even more interesting is the reaction from other communities. The positivity of this update has spread to all corners of Space Dad fandom. With a quick glance over Star Citizen fandom, well, you're not gonna find that many topics in before thread is deleted. Well, yeah, that seems to be the policy for Star Citizen. But regardless, the positivity was still spread across this whole thread and many other ones like this one. That update shows how abysmal Starfield is, more than anything else. I'm happy for Hello Games and for my free update and the cool new ships. Oh, Starfield? Well, I wonder how they're doing these days. Yeah, well, that's pretty much expected. Oh, Bethesda, you competent fools. You had a really good feature and you squandered it. On the other hand, No Man's Sky decided, well, sure, copy you, but still showcases how a good idea is still good idea and how a squandered idea is a squandered idea. Now, it's understandable that for Star Citizen and Starfield, the moderation team for the forums would be deleting those threads that are pertaining just for No Man's Sky. However, this infectious positivity spread to all of the space games, and one community sort of stood out with their moderation team, and that was Elite Dangerous. The poor moderation team of Elite Dangerous had to remind people that, hey, we're not Frontier Development employees, and they're not, and they would be welcoming all sorts of posts from other games about Elite Dangerous, which there were plenty of ship builds for both Elite and Starfield and Star Citizen. In fact, one of the promotional pictures for Star Citizen was plastered by No Man's Sky themselves. This is totally not a cutlass. No. No, this is unrelated look. No, don't look at it too hard. No. Still, back to Elite Dangerous, it's rather funny that they had to remind people that, hey, we don't take low effort content, and that's fair enough. You would understand why these communities would at least moderate themselves not to get polluted, but it's still infectious positivity that, hey, No Man's Sky can do so much with, weirdly, so little, as both in the budget as well as in just the content itself. And when it came to Elite Dangerous, well, there was an elephant in the room, and that name was ship interiors. So why was No Man's Sky's update such a big thing? Well, not only it allowed people to just make their own ships, which is a really cool feature, even if, let's say, I personally don't like base building, shipbuilding oddly fascinates me, even though I too don't really like building stuff, I just want to fly around. Still, I recognize its potential. And sometimes I just want to make a penis ship, okay? But the thing that really fascinates me is the ship interiors themselves, especially when they're done without a loading screen, Starfield and Bethesda. However, when it came to Elite Dangerous specifically, well, the Odyssey update that was launched in 2021, well, it came with ability to walk outside your ship, walk on a planet's surface, and yet not inside your own spaceship. But Elite Dangerous developers heavily hinted before the release of Elite Dangerous itself in 2014-2013 in the Kickstarter beta period.
There's a lot we can do there.
I would love to see players running around their ship and other ships, dealing with emergencies and repelling boarders, cleaning up toxic spillages, exploring derelict husks, that sort of mischief.
What I want to see in future releases of Elite Dangerous will be more ships, more diversity, and the ability to walk around them, particularly the bigger ones like the Anaconda.
Another example that we've built into the structure of the game is ship interiors. Now, a lot of people have seen, you've seen that we're designing all the ships with the interiors in mind, how the cargo is unloaded, all of that sort of thing, how damage occurs. And that's because that another thing that we are doing, again down the line, is that you will be able to walk around inside your ship, you'll be able to get out of your ship, walk around inside space stations, other vehicles, all of that sort of thing.
Funny that some of the PR team tried to pivot this lack of interior walking feature with this kind of argument.
We understand some people may have wanted to have the full ship interiors, but I will go back to what we've already discussed. Everything done with Odyssey is purely based around longevity of gameplay and stuff like the sheer scale of these ships to sort of. It would be fun, in my opinion, and I'm happy to be at odds with different people in the chat, which I'm sure I will be. It would be fun to run up the steps the first 5, 6, 7 times, but then after you've done that 1,000 times, you're probably going to be a little bit more, I just need to get into my ship. And especially if you are leaving someplace in a hurry in a big ship, you probably wouldn't want to be spending 10 minutes running down the corridors as people are laying into your ship. So a lot of this stuff is done to enhance the gameplay. And to focus on really those core gameplay loops which we spoke about. But for me, I think it's something I'm used to, and it's there. You've seen it.
However, this was the very last time and very last statement we still have to this day about Elite Dangerous ship interiors from the developers themselves. However, I gotta remind people that this quote was said by a then community manager Arthur, who simply echoes the sentiment from the development team, and not particularly himself that much. And also, those that didn't know, he moved on from Frontier just recently, so he is no longer with the company as well. But still, it once more brings up the conversation within Elite Dangerous community about the ship interiors, and frankly speaking, the failure to deliver this feature that honestly was expected and, well, was marketed from back in the day. So what the hell? No Man's Sky shipbuilding update is cool, yes, and a lot of folks in Elite community want ship interiors. But none of you want these ship interiors, so stop quetch, to complain persistently and whiningly. Have you ever looked at the No Man's Sky ship interiors yet? It's just a 2x1 boxes all the way down. You want stuff in Star Citizen because Elite, like Star Citizen, and unlike No Man's Sky, has designed ships that are only going to be done justice with designed interiors. Of course, now that we're on the issue of Star Citizen billion-dollar tech demo, harder to complain if a tech demo can do it. So why not a real product? And still, it's rather interesting that a game like No Man's Sky, a full product with a smaller scope overall, or a big billion-dollar tech demo, both can do this feature in some form or another. So really, the question becomes, why not Elite Dangerous in any kind of a form even attempted it? Speaking for myself, I'd love to be able to just walk around the cockpit bridge to the door as an alternative to the disembark menu. It would do a lot of immersion and use a lot of existing models. And yeah, that's kind of the thing. Immersion is a big part of Elite Dangerous. So Elite ignoring one of the bigger immersive features, or immersion creating parts of spaceship piloting, well, kind of leaves a lot of questions, doesn't it? No one is asking for No Man's Sky ship interiors. We're asking for Elite ship interiors. And that's kind of the thing, isn't it? We want Elite Dangerous specific gameplay associated with Elite Dangerous interiors, just like it is for X4, No Man's Sky, and Star Citizen. Each one of them does something a little bit different. Hell, even including Starfield. And for each one of them, there's something different. And it's always really cool and interesting to see, even if it is cosmetic. Like, for example, in X4, it still adds that immersion, doesn't it? To everyone who constantly asks for ship interiors that they can walk through to disembark their ship, I have a question. Do you use pre-flight checks You know, pre-flight checks, the optional setting that nobody uses but once or twice. At the end of the day, ship interiors would be really cool, but everyone who wanted them would want to be able to skip them, because they just waste time and makes the game slower instead of just boarding straight up to the pilot seat. Ship interiors are such a necessary waste of resources that add nearly zero gameplay. Does it now? Really? Over the years, I've seen plenty of Elite Dangerous space dads coping and seething about the whole ship interiors. Well, we don't need it, it doesn't add anything, or what would you even use it for? This sort of attitude just presents the overall lack of imagination when there are actual examples already with the games that work with the ship interiors themselves. My personal favorite pick is Void Crew. If you've ever played such a little game, it really is cool. I do recommend it. So you can just have multi-crew, proper multi-crew where you run around the ship and fix things. For Deep Space Explorers, my personal favorite is fixing parts that, well, certain automatic mechanisms within your ship could not fix. Like, for example, the power plant of the ship itself. Or other parts, like the canopy from outside. Or, perhaps in Elite Dangerous, there's also something called ship integrity. Essentially how closely the gaps of panels are together and essentially fixing those. Because otherwise, the only place where you can fix those is within the starport. See, there are plenty of examples of how ship interiors could be adding gameplay to the game, not only with just a typical bring boxes in like in Star Citizen. I just want them to stop half-assing minimum viable product on every feature of the game. And this is the problem with Elite Dangerous as a whole. Throughout the years, it's been fumbling, stumbling, and that's just not me saying, the critic in the audience. The track record for Elite's releases are pretty poor. Take, for example, the Space Legs release with the Odyssey update. It was one of the worst things in the game, and still to this day pertains very little gameplay, or just function, content overall. That could lead into the spaceship interiors also being just null, void, and just lacking any kind of design or gameplay. And the only thing that would be really nice is just the looks. I'd rather them spend their resources and time on fixing bugs, polishing content, planet exploration is boring, and adding new, real content. And then you wonder why people ask that, when your track record is abysmal as that. But that's enough about Elite Dangerous. No Man's Sky's update itself is really just a fun addition to the whole environment, adding a little bit of extra content, quality of life, and in fact just creativity as before. And as it happens, well, the player numbers don't lie. In Steam, you can see a very nice peak point of nearly 100 players around, and that is just beautiful to see. For a game that keeps on releasing good stuff, keeps on releasing quality content that just makes no sense. How the fuck can they make money out of this? But apparently they can. Unlike Elite Dangerous, who's just pumping out pay to win these days, unlike Star Citizen, who's just stagnating weirdly and pumping out pay to win these days, or even worse, unlike Starfield's abysmally handled gameplay as a whole, results are, well, there. People are just there for good quality content, even if the game itself is not the most hardcore thing out there, even if it doesn't have a lot of polish on many mechanics. Let's be frank here with No Man's Sky. It still is a lot more fun than, well, wasted potential like Elite, or just poorly executed result and boring gameplay like Starfield, or, well, just not working gameplay like in Star Citizen. And just like, and here's a little shout out to X4 people, with constant updates, adding new features, adding quality content, even if it stumbles quite a bit, it's just so wonderful to see both X4 and No Man's Sky today especially, just adding more stuff and attracting people because they are trying, not to exploit their community, not being greedy assholes, essentially. The lesson, I suppose, is stop with the pay to win and other nonsense microtransaction crap. Good quality content is being rewarded. So here's to you, No Man's Sky. Thanks for yet another good update with interesting content, and certainly I'll check out more of it and build more penis ships. Great big thanks to, of course, all the patrons and supporters on the channel. See you around in the black. Rather interesting versatility of options. What was that sentence? I don't fucking know. I can't do this scriptless. It's horrible. Anyways, I just bad. Anyways, blooper. Dax. What is up, Space Dads?